You are with us on Halftime Report. It's a green day across the screen once again. Let's get to our movers and shakers segment now. We're starting off with banks which are in focus. There's a lot of excitement. Of course, we saw that play out right from yesterday with plenty of the banks which are under PCA. Now, Abhishek, the big hope on the street, the hope trade is that these banks get to either come out of PCA or have certain relaxation in rules coming in. What are you picking up?
Well, these are based on the data that apart from the fact that you mentioned that there is a belief in the street that a new governor can actually look at relaxing the PCA framework, which can boost the banks coming out and start lending. So if the lending increases or the book grows, it will help in their profitability. So currently we have 11 banks which are under PCA or prompt corrective action by the RBI, and they form about 20% of the sectoral credit or the banking credit. So gross NPA in absolute value of these PCA banks are about 35% of the system gross NPA. You look at the capital levels out of these 11 PCA banks, the better capitalized banks are, Corporation Bank, Bank of India, Oriental Bank of Commerce and Dena Bank. The worst capitalized banks are IDBI Bank and Allahabad Bank. In fact, IDBI Bank's common equity tier 1 ratio is well below 4% mark, which is the worst in Indian banking history. Look at the other details on PCA banks. The banks with lower net NPS or they have a better provision coverage ratio and they are likely to move out faster are Bank of India, Allahabad and OBC. The PCA banks have reported a net loss of 10,200 crores in Q2, which forms about 69% of the total PSU bank's net loss. The PCA bank's loan book, however, grew YOY and quarter on quarter, but in lower single digits. So three key numbers, they form about 20% of the sectoral credit, 35% of system gross NPA and 69% of the PSU bank's net loss.
Okay, thank you, Abhishek, for that. So just the ones which make it to all the lists, whether it's capital adequacy or in terms of the lower, better asset quality, it's Bank of India and OBC, which seems to be the, the common links or the ones which fare better on the parameters. Let's move on and talk about Dr. Reddy's, because that is sulking in trade. Ekta is here to tell us more. Ekta, the stock, was jubilant when we had the news that they could be selling Suboxone generic, but there is a speed breaker to that.
Well, it seems to be probably a temporary setback at this point in time, because remember that all the way back in November of 2018, basically the US court had ruled in favor of Dr. Reddy's and they had lifted a permanent injunction on Suboxone, which basically allowed Dr. Reddy's to sell Suboxone in the US markets. Now, however, the US court has said that you cannot sell Suboxone in the US markets till the 20th of December, or at least the interpretation is that until we have more clarity on whether Indivior will challenge that particular court order or not. So Indivior has till December 20th to challenge that particular order. So the street is probably adjusting its estimates, because earlier they were estimating that there could be incremental sales of $50 to $70 million from Suboxone in FY19. But now, obviously, those estimates are reduced simply because the time of launch has now been delayed for Dr. Reddy's. We don't have certainty on when they could launch Suboxone, but as of now, at least till December 20th, the time which is given to Indivior, Dr. Reddy's is not likely to launch.
Okay, all right. Thanks for that, Ekta. Well, that's a stock under pressure, almost 5% gone on Dr. Reddy's. Let's move on to the next one that's on our radar. AB Fashion and Retail still up 8%. There is a note from CLSA and they seem to sound optimistic on this one, Mangala.
Absolutely. What they believe is that there are multiple growth triggers for Aditya Birla Fashion Retail. Remember, a couple of quarters ago, when the company reported good set of numbers, we started seeing the brokerage upgrades come by, and now the latest one has come in from CLSA. They believe that the Pantaloons store network, which had seen a rapid expansion, nearly tripling of the stores from FY13 when the company had acquired this from the Future Group, has now started to mature and operating leverage benefits will kick in. Remember, they expect about 33% growth in Pantaloons EBITDA over the next 3 years. Add to that, Madura Garments, which has the business of Peter England, Louis Philippe, Alan Solly, they would see benefits from corrective measures that the company has taken in terms of better store throughput. So add to that, they see some value creation also in their innerwear business on account of network expansion. The company is targeting around 9,500 touch points as far as their innerwear business is concerned. So add all these things together, the EPS for the company over the next 3 years, as per CLSA, should grow at a compounded rate of 29%. 40%. That has led to them upping their target price from 232 to 240. The benefit of operating leverage for the Pantaloons business is such that 1% margin expansion can actually grow the EPS by around 40%. They up the target price, of course, with some key risks. So the key risk is rising e-commerce competitive intensity and the volatility from the high operating leverage that I spoke about. 1% margin expansion may expand the EPS by 40%. If it doesn't, then the impact on the EPS would be adverse.
Okay, well, that's an interesting one. Actually, this company has been coming out with blockbuster numbers. Last 2 quarters, I've been noticing on the institutional radar as well, it seems.
Absolutely, but Ekta's still with us and she's going to tell us about Cadila. Ekta?
Well, positive news which came in on Cadila. Actually, this particular piece of news came in yesterday, but obviously with all of the news flow, it pretty much went ignored. There is an important approval that they've received for an ulcer drug from one of their units, which is basically the Leva Pharma unit, which is based in Gujarat. Now, why does this assume importance? Is because this is an injection that they've got approval for. Injectable drugs are way more difficult to get approvals for as opposed to oral solid dosages or formulations, and especially because this particular unit was inspected by the US FDA in August of 2018, and at that point in time they had received 5 observations. So this is the first product approval which has come through for Cadila from that particular unit. So that means that all of those US FDA issues that of the 5 observations, etc., now stand negated because they've received approval from that particular facility, and that too an injectable.
Okay, so Cadila on the move as well. Thank you for getting us that perspective on Cadila Health. Well, with that, let's move on to actually, before Yes Bank, we talk about persistent systems, which is something that Reema looks at closely. So what is the latest here, Reema? They had a call?
They had an analyst day yesterday. So that was in Pune. So the key takeaways from that: one, the CMD's role will be split in order to comply with SEBI's guideline that the chairman and managing director should be different, and this is to be implemented by April 2020. So what the company said, that they will have a new MD by the beginning of next fiscal. Anand Deshpande, who is currently the CMD and the founder, will retain the chairman's role, and the MD who they'll look at will be someone with a sales expertise. But what could have excited the street is the fact that the company said that they may consider a buyback post Q3 of FY19. So they have, ample cash of more than 1,200 crore rupees. They had kept the cash in order to make acquisitions, but the acquisitions have been smaller in size and fewer in number. So they're still left with sufficient cash. So they may look at deploying it for a buyback. They've acknowledged that growth has been slower than expected, but they do hope that things will improve in the coming 2 quarters. Their focus area will be on artificial intelligence, machine language, cloud security, as well as Internet of Things. And if you break that up in verticals, they've reiterated their focus on healthcare, BFSI, industrials, and manufacturing. Citi says the biggest concern for Persistent has been its slower growth compared to peers, but they still retain a neutral rating on the stock on account of valuations, because valuations at 12 times forward multiple PE is much less than what you have for the industry. Motilal Oswal, on the other hand, reiterates a buy rating. They've kept a target price at 750. But in news coming in, the RBI governor will hold a press conference at 4 p.m. So on the job, right from day one.
First day running. Well, I'm sure there'll be lots and lots of questions. This is not going to be an easy press conference for the new governor to really negotiate.
But he could field all the questions saying that he's just, started the job right now. So it's too early to, comment right now. But yes, that's going to be an event for the evening. Absolutely.
So 4 p.m. Keep your date with us right here on CNBC TV 18. Well, let's move on to Yes Bank now. The stock has been buzzing. Yesterday, very strong move. Today, it's following it up with that 4-5% gain as well, ahead of the all-important board meeting tomorrow. We understand that the Search and Selection Committee will be holding a meeting today to shortlist candidates for the CEO's position. Ritu has the details. Ritu.
The next 24 hours are going to be crucial, although the names may not immediately be made public. But yes, the Search and Selection Committee will be meeting today for the final shortlist of 3 candidates that will then be sent to the board for their approval before RBI picks one of those names to succeed Rana Kapoor as the next MD and CEO when he vacates his office at the end of January next year. We do understand currently there's a pool of 5 candidates that the Search and Selection Committee is looking at, in which, remember, T.S. Vijayan is part of the committee along with with the NRC committee, and he's also now a board member. From these 5 candidates, 3 will be shortlisted and then sent to the board, which is going to be meeting tomorrow. They will ratify these 3 names before they send it to the RBI. Also, tomorrow's board meeting is going to be important because a new chairman for the board of Yes Bank will be named after Ashok Chawla put in his papers just a couple of months back. Remember, there have been a spate of resignations. 3 directors have resigned, including Ashok Chawla, R. Chandrasekhar and Vasant Gujrati. 1 independent director has been replaced with Mr. T.S. Vijayan of AIDA now joining the board, and 1 more new independent director will be named in tomorrow's board meeting.
Ritu, we'll come back to you for more updates in this developing story. Tomorrow, of course, will be the critical board meeting. A quick recap of the top stocks. All the PCA banks, so Corporation Bank, OBC, Bank of India, Dena Bank, Allahabad Bank, IDBI Bank, pharmaceutical names like Dr. Reddy's and Cadila, Yes Bank, Aditya Birla Fashion, and finally, Persistent Systems as well.